Hello, Mood Group friends. Welcome back to our podcast, Packaging Perspectives, brought to you by Mood Group, global executive search specialist to the packaging and print sectors. Today, I'm very excited to introduce you to Carrie Klepzig, who is Global Marketing Leader of eProductivity. eProductivity software is a leading global provider of industry-specific business and production software technology for the packaging and print industries, and, for a matter of record, valued clients of Mood Group. Hello, Carrie. Thank you for joining us. Where do we find you in the world today?
Beautiful, sunny Manchester, Altrincham. So just seated outside of Manchester in a glorious, wet English Wednesday morning.
Very nice, very nice. And that was a move that you made in the last 24 months, I think, wasn't it? Over the pond, as they say.
About 18 months ago, yes. From equally as gray and rainy Pittsburgh, so didn't downgrade too much on the weather, but yes, so moved here about 18 months ago.
And no doubt enjoying the fact that, like we say, when we're going somewhere on holiday, it's never the same as when you live somewhere and you've got more time to go and explore and do things and get out and about.
Oh, for sure. I mean, nobody moves to England for the weather, all jokes aside, right? But what you do move for is the history. There's so much to see on any given day, weekend, whether it's a day trip, obviously the proximity to the continent, hop on a plane and you're anywhere and under, an hour sometimes, Paris, Amsterdam, and certainly so much within reach within 2 hours. But it was a good move.
Very nice. Well, very pleased to have you in England.
Thank
you. By way of explanation for our audience, when we created our podcast, my business partner and wife, Emadu, and I wanted to have conversations with key people from our industry about their careers to date, the paths they followed, twists and turns, etc., and learn what advice they would offer to others embarking on or partway through their own careers in our industries. On the assumption, Carrie, that you're not living to work, but rather working to live, let's start first with, what do you like to do outside of work?
Lots of things. So I write, I paint. So there's that piece. I'm a trustee and a volunteer at TRC Rape Crisis Center here located in Manchester. So devote a lot of time to that. Traveling, we just discussed, big history nerd, history buff at heart. So get in as much day trips as I can, and then just normal things, hanging out with friends and family and loved ones. So quite full on both fronts.
I love books, and listening to you being an author, I love books, particularly cookery books. I think we shared that before.
Mm-hmm.
And I can always imagine where somebody writing a cookery book would start from, because you've got some recipes that you like or you've researched, and it's much around that. But in your case, I think your books are fiction. Am I right?
Mm-hmm.
Where do you get your ideas and your inspiration from, and how do you start with a book? I've never spoken to somebody that does that before.
That's a good question. I remember being about eight, and I wrote a screenplay. And I remember I'm dating myself severely here. I wanted Whoopi Goldberg to star in it. So this must have been in the 80s, right? Kind of height of her career. And I still remember the plot to this day. And I typed it out on I don't know where the idea came from. And my dad, rest his soul, went back in the day, right, to, I think, the library and made copies upon copies. And we got a phone book. Remember those? And he helped me mail them to every movie house in America. Of course, nothing ever came of it. But I was lucky that I had parents who fostered that at a very young age. And so anytime I had an idea, I felt like I should write it down. Like it was a perfectly normal thing to do, to daydream and take that daydream and put it onto a piece of paper. Because I really had the encouragement of my parents, who went so far as to, shove them into manila envelopes and send them off to movie houses. It is fiction, but real life. So the first book is all about children in crisis in different parts of the world. And I think, especially as an American, we tend to be very tunnel visioned in what we see and how we perceive the outside world and how we perceive when we go into a country for military action for whatever that reason is. And then we just leave and don't realize sort of what's been left behind. So that was inspiration came from watching Hotel Rwanda, actually, and feeling incredibly guilty that I was one of those Americans when it was all happening and didn't really care. And Juliana was about 6 at the time. So just sort of connecting the dots of, I'm a mother, I have children. I can't imagine living in a world where I couldn't protect them. Your most basic instinct as a parent, right, is to protect your children, and to not be able to do that in so many parts of the world in conflict at any given time must be heart-wrenching. So not exactly a book you'd, make you feel good, but I think sometimes stories have to be told. Then on to just my rideshare drivers and hearing their stories and why they choose to do it. And just, again, some coming from horrific circumstances from wherever they are and just carving out a living the best that they can, to people who've literally left corporate jobs because they were sick of the hours and wanted to see their children grow up and so went a different route. And I think those people are fascinating, and we never stop to talk to people anymore, whether it's the person next to you in the train or the bus, or, it's like frowned upon. You have children, they get annoyed when you talk to other people. Like, why would you do that? Stop talking, mom, right? You don't know that. And so it all just sort of comes from things that I think other people should know.
Very interesting. And hearing you saying that you were grateful for your parents' enthusiasm and support for your idea and your initiative, despite what the outcome may or may not have come to from an early age. Do you think that's key to people being successful in their lives and their careers? Has that been something that's helped you with yours?
It has, for sure. I think very much, we grow into our parents, right? As much as they fostered my love of books and writing and reading, they definitely steered me towards take what you're good at and what you like, and then how can you go make money from it? Like, how can you earn a living? And so talking about my career and twists and how did I wind up where I was supposed to go to law school. I had never, the word marketing meant nothing to me. Even as I was graduating from university, I was going to be a lawyer, full stop. It's what my parent, my love of books, my love of history. I'm a good writer. My dad used to say, think of the closing arguments you can write, Carrie. Like, you'll be great at those. So it was fostering that, but in a very practical, parental way, steering your things into, that's great, you can do it, and maybe one day somebody will buy a book you write, but how are you going to feed yourself in the meantime, which I think is perfectly practical. My daughter calls me a dream killer often, right? She'll tell me she wants to be something, and I'm like, that's great, why don't you do that as a hobby, right? Like, let's do that as a hobby. And then, funny enough, she's on a path to law school. But let's go off and do this so that you can earn a living. And she's like, you're such a dream killer. So yes, they fostered it, but also instilled a sense of practicality, I think, as well.
It's a balance, isn't it? I often think, because doing the work that I'm privileged to do, we do meet a lot of people that perhaps have reached a point where they're not happy in their work, and they realize perhaps they didn't follow their passion quite so much. I think famously Steve Jobs, the founder of Apple, was on record for saying, if you do what you like, you'll never work another day in your life, sort of thing. And I know it's a fine line. As a parent myself, I've encouraged my children to find independence, and yes, it's being an artist, perhaps I'm knocking being an artist, don't get me wrong, but certain things where you're perhaps very much reliant on other people, and it's not so easy to drive your own fortune. We're going to be protective about.
No, but you can, what I've found was, by not taking that fateful trip into law school, although in hindsight, I probably should have gone. But in wanting to follow I didn't want to be a lawyer. My parents wanted me to be a lawyer, right? Yeah. I did not, and I didn't really know what I wanted to be because I'd never thought about anything else. I feel so blessed and lucky to be where I am today because I do get to use all of that creativity, right? Marketing is a very creative job. The backbone of any good marketing is content, which is writing. And you get to play like you're a little kid in a lot of ways, right? And really use that creativity. So I think that I also learned from that, while my parents' intentions were good and they wanted me to have, a successful career and something that would make me financially stable, there was probably a middle ground, and that would have been marketing. But I don't think that they would have thought about that, right? Being the sort of folks that they were, would not have been like, oh, maybe we should encourage her to go into marketing, right? Yes, so you can find the good balance that uses your strengths and the things that you're good at and the things that really inspire you, and go carve out a really good career with those. I feel lucky that I've been able to do that.
Very good. Very good. Thank you. Please, can you share with us one or more highlights in your career so far?
So there's been a couple. I'm glad in transparency to the audience, I did get a peek at the answer questions first. So I thought a lot about that because I've had a wide career from politics to corporate America, in unified communications and collaboration, and then now into the printing and packaging industries, and little bits in between that, going from running my own business to not. And so there's bits from each of them. The world of politics in the US is fascinating. To run a campaign, to be submerged in that world, is an experience unlike any other that I will ever have in my lifetime. But for very different reasons, right, than doing what I'm doing now. But I currently, and more pertinent to this audience, was being a part of eProductivity Software, EPS, spinning out of EFI and becoming an independent company. We were designing and building the plane while we were flying it, right? Still had the 30-year history behind us, a really strong heritage of doing what we do really well, but getting the chance to go off and create our own destiny in many ways. And all that came with that, building literally an infrastructure from the ground up, our own ERP and our entire IT infrastructure and new processes and systems, and down to my neck of all of it, the branding and bringing that to life and positioning and messaging. And our CEO, Gabby Masliak, is actually quite creative as well. Going to be a great CMO in his next life, I think. So really passionate about our branding and our positioning too. So that has been, you rarely get a chance to put your thumbprint on a company, right? To be there in its shaping and its molding. And it's a lot of hard work, and it's a lot of hours and a lot of stressful days. But then you look back at it now that we're sort of coming out on the other side of that, into more of a calmness, and you think, gosh, like, we just did this really amazing thing. And I think that the customers didn't skip a beat, right? We sort of shielded people from everything that was going on, kept investing in our software, kept investing in our technology, kept doing our upgrades, kept getting out there, with the curtain pulled behind us. And I think finally just being able to unveil that, and move forward with some really good plans.
Amazing. Really amazing, and actually a bit like the analogy of the swan going down the river, isn't it? When
Yes.
what you see above water is exactly what we, the world, have seen, and you know what's gone into that. I like that description you gave of sort of building the plane whilst it's flying. That's fantastic. That's really good. What was the career path that led you to where you were today? Were there any sort of tipping or pivotal points that, upon reflection, played a major part in your career?
Yeah, so not going to law school. So I had no idea what I wanted to do after I made that announcement, and just wound up going to work one Monday shortly thereafter with a good family friend, friend of my dad's, and was in the mailroom of a political party back in the States because I really had nothing else to do, and really tripped into marketing that way. Just really tripped into, being a part of a campaign for a Senate race that was about to take place, and interacting with the press, and all of a sudden writing press releases, and being involved in building a website. So it was a very grassroots, not a lot of money campaign. And that's where I fell in love with marketing. That I didn't understand, I don't think, at that moment what it was that I was doing, but I was like, I really like this. I feel like I'm good at it. It's using all of the skills that I have. And so after that campaign, went to New Orleans and did an internship at a political PR firm. And that's sort of when all the light bulbs went off and all the pieces fell into place. So that was just fate, maybe coincidence, following my heart, just sort of saying, I don't know what I'm going to do, but I'm not going to go do that. Funny enough, I think I am now going to go do that. I think I'm going to start a law program here in the next couple of years to just sort of think what comes next, right? What comes after all of this, because there often is. So what comes next? And so I've been really kicking around, maybe doing legal work in the nonprofit world. I don't know. I'm going to go and sort of keep that in my back pocket. And well, I'm still good at studying and reading, and see where we go from there.
Sounds very interesting. Watch this space.
Yeah.
I think you've partly answered this question I'm going to ask, but I'm going to ask it anyway. Did you always want to do what you find yourself doing?
No, I mean, I never knew that, like, up until all of a sudden in my 20s, I was doing it. I had zero concept of marketing. I didn't, no, never. Once I fell into it, I knew that I didn't really want to do anything else. Again, what we just, going back 20 seconds, what comes next into off into our golden years. I'm not going anywhere anytime soon. But there will come a point where I think everybody steps back from their career, right, as we get older, and what comes next. But for now and for the foreseeable future and what I've been doing, I can't imagine doing anything else.
Sure. And I should have caveated when I said watch this space. I mean, in terms of the bigger picture in the future, later on down the road. Yes. It's somebody, I read a book once of the chairman of a very large print and packaging organization in Saudi Arabia. And one of the things that he always used to say to anyone he was interviewing was, looked at their CV and said, right, show me the plan. What was the plan here? Why did you make all these decisions? And I suppose planning for the future is a good thing. Yeah. And there will come a time where perhaps you want to draw on previous interests and develop them and get prepared for them. Absolutely.
Yeah. I think we all have a second act somewhere into our golden years, right? You're in your 60s, 70s, 80s, maybe 90s. I think as long as you keep going, I think that's what keeps you going. At least that's, my grandparents lived well into old age. And I remember asking like how they just did it, right? Just up every day. And they both said you just have to keep going to something every day that you love and that keeps you active and out of the house and your brain kind of working. And so I definitely got that from them, this keep planning till you're 100. You just keep going down that road and you'll get there.
Absolutely. Yeah. I think there's some books being written based on longevity of life, particularly a focus of one I started to read about a Japanese book and about ikigai. And there they refer to, there's a particular village in Japan where they've got the biggest amount of people that are above 100 years old. And they're all extremely community active. They're all helping people in their community, and it keeps them very engaged and very active. So,
Yeah.
And I think also when you talk about second chapters and third chapters and things like that, some of the things I read now seems to indicate that people will have perhaps more than one job in parallel, or people will have many different careers in a lifetime, because they're able to do that. They're able to perhaps have one that's more staid and in a particular route, and something else which is a bit more of an indulgence and that sort of thing. And that we will accept that, as a world, we'll tap into resources and buy people's time, perhaps not in a full-time role. It might be that we only have something, a kind of glorified job share type thing. But
it's an interesting concept.
There's some thoughts that things are going in that direction, and certainly shared resources and taking people's abilities and saying, well, we see it, for instance, in people coming towards the end of their careers and then taking on non-exec roles or interim roles or things like that, where they're supplying their whole lifetime's career experience to a company on 2 days a month. And that company gets to tap into such amazing experience, and we're all heading in that direction probably with future time. With your work hat on, Carrie, please may I ask you the following.
Mm-hmm.
What do you feel you're good at?
Writing. Two things. So writing out of the gate. I'm good at, and not just, I'm good at taking maybe very esoteric concepts and making them interesting, or making them digestible for somebody who maybe isn't super techie. So good at getting a message across, I think, in a way that's engaging. I'm also good at, I think a lot of people, a misconception of marketing, especially marketing as you go up the ladder, right? When you get to the top of marketing, there's very little creativity on a daily basis, right? It is looking at a lot of data. It is looking at budgets and numbers and research, and it's not sort of what you came in up through, right? But I am good at building a marketing infrastructure. And I think a lot of people on the outside of marketing don't realize how technical it is today, and that it does have its own IT infrastructure in the background, from your marketing automation, making sure that that is synced and connected and working properly with whether you use Salesforce or some other CRM, and is it connected to your website? What platform do you use for a website? What technology is on the back end of your website that's giving you all the good data that you need to make really good decisions about SEO, which, worshiping at the altar of Google is hard to work. And if anybody could crack that, right? I do love how people are like, why can't you just do it? Like, why aren't we number one? Well, if I could crack the world of SEO, I would be a billionaire and I wouldn't be coming to work tomorrow, right? So it's a lot of data. It's a lot of trying. It's a lot of anything other than, gosh, that looks pretty, let's go do that, right? So I think a big misconception of people who do not live their life day in and day out of marketing is really how data intensive it is and how IT intensive it is. So I'm good at putting that whole picture together, and I feel really proud of what's been built in an independent EPS. So we had to go do that all from scratch, all from the ground up, not having EFI's, corporate marketing infrastructure to rely on anymore. So good at a bigger picture, and then also my sweet spot of writing.
And with the writing aspect melded together with the marketing aspect, would you say that that makes you a good evangelist? Are you very good at sort of? I've always thought that you're a good evangelist. That you pass the message.
Yes.
Not preaching, but you know how to communicate it. You know how to get others to follow your idea.
Yes.
Yeah. Thank you. We find that when we're holding similar conversations like this with others, the next question is always very interesting as well, which is, what do you find others give you to do? You know, you're in an organization and there's always things that arise and people think, God, we need to get such and such. I know, I'll give that to Carrie. Carrie will take care of that. That will get done. We no need to worry about it. What sort of things do you find that you get asked to do like that, Carrie?
Again, a big part of the communication, whether that's communicating externally to our customers and helping to craft those messages, or it's communicating internally to our team members or to our partners or to the media or to the press. So, which I think is a natural place for me to fall, given my skill set and given my role as well. We peer driven. Gabby does have the expectation, rightfully so. You know, we've been put in leadership positions that go lead, right? Like go kind of figure it out and come to him, you know, if we're stuck or we have an impasse or a roadblock. But we have a very collaborative SLT team who, if one is overwhelmed, somebody can pitch in, right? And always a good balance. So I think we all naturally sort of fall into what you just said. This needs to be done. Who can do it? So mine tends to be that world of communication and getting our message internally and externally out, regardless of in what shape it is, right? Could you craft this email? Could you go do this plan? Could you do this for the media? So nothing really outside, I don't think, of what I'm naturally good at.
Thank you. And I asked this question, the next one, with assuming, like myself, there are things that I move more to in a warm light than others. So I'm going to say, is there anything that you really dislike in your work? Dislike might be a strong word, but is there stuff that you would prefer not to do rather than to do?
Yes.
I know I do. So.
Sure. I think also with the leadership position comes a lot of admin, right? And it's not fun and it's tedious and it's time consuming, but you have to do it, right? It comes with the territory, anywhere from, I think we said, and I was like, that's absolutely right. Your expense reports, right? Time consuming. Again, digging into, getting ready for some sort of, internal presentation where there's a lot of data mining and presentation putting together. I don't really know anybody who jumps up and down at that. And it's like, I can't wait to go off and do that thing. But so I think anything admin that becomes a little bit tedious and you put it off until you can't put it off anymore. And then you just have to go off and do it. So again, nothing, I don't think, shocking that most people wouldn't say. And then one self-inflicted, I think, and it's definitely, I think, been made worse, at least my generation maybe is pushing back a little bit, working from home or working remotely a lot of the time, and also just personality wise, very type A personality, having a hard time shutting off and remembering to stop thinking about work and looking outside and it's dark and you haven't moved from your desk and you don't even know how many hours because you've just been. So, but that is very self-inflicted, is not knowing when to just sort of say, we don't cure cancer here. We're not solving climate change, right? This can be done tomorrow morning and it will be okay. My grandfather used to say, and I think it's very wise, work done at night is rework done in the morning, because you just get so tired.
Say that again. Say that again. Work done at
The
night.
work you do at night is the rework you do the next morning. So whatever you're doing at night,
Wise
you're
words.
probably going to have to go redo in the morning, right? Because you're tired and your brain isn't fresh, and remembering to just stop for a second, and you've accomplished enough for the day. Enough has been done for the day, and go off, because you'll probably look at that work in the morning and think, ugh.
Yeah.
That
I used to
wasn't
have a
the
managing
best.
director actually who would say, after 6 o'clock, I don't make my best decisions. You know, if I can possibly do it, I'd rather leave it over till the next day with a fresh mind.
Yeah.
And that was his. It wasn't always the carte blanche the case, but yeah, wise words from your granddad. Wise
Yes.
words. Well, thank you, Carrie, for
Thank
answering
you.
these questions for our audience. Is there anything we haven't covered, either about you or your career or reproductivity
No,
or
I
anything
think
else you'd like to talk about?
we did a good job. Thank you.
Okay. It just leaves me to say a very big thank you for being our guest and sharing your wisdom and experiences with those that will be watching and listening to our podcast, Packaging Perspectives, brought to you by Mood Group. Thank you
you
very
so
much.
Have a good rest of your week.
And you. Take care.
Thank you.
Thank
Bye-bye.
you. Bye.